Hello everyone and welcome to the PR Summit meeting. My name is Jan and I'll be moderating today's call. Our speaker today is Stephanie Slingerland, Director of Philanthropy and Social Impact at Kellogg Company and Executive Director of the Kellogg Company Fund and the Kellogg Company Employees 25-Year Fund. She'll be presenting Kellogg's Better Days, Employee Engagement in Social Cause. We'll turn to the presentation in just a moment. But first I want to go over the web conference instructions. Everyone is currently in mute so that the background noise does not become distracting for the other participants. To view today's presentation, as the screens change live, you may go to the link that was sent to you in your reminder email. Once there, you may click anywhere on the page, and you'll see a pop-up with the option to make a comment. Feel free to ask questions by clicking on any slide and posting your question as a comment, and we'll make sure all of your questions are answered. For the newer participants in the group, it might be useful to review some of the main benefits you can take advantage of as a member at no additional charge. First are the live monthly web conference meetings, which you've already dialed into today. I hope you find these useful, and we have an excellent lineup, which you can see by going to our website schedule page. Second, we do record all of these, so if you're traveling or stuck in another meeting, simply log in at your leisure, and the full archives of past meetings are available to you with a number of interesting topics. Third, get to know the other members. By logging in, you can see all of their profiles, and we're glad to make any introductions if wished. Fourth, if you're wrestling with if you're wrestling with any key issues or decisions, we strongly encourage you to reach out to the other members, and our site makes it very easy to post questions. The seniority and experience of your fellow members makes this the best possible forum to get advice from others who've probably dealt with the same issues and can give you sound advice on what worked and what did not. Fifth, we really encourage site visits. If you've not visited others' offices to have a great discussion on best practices and see their facilities, please do so. You can log in to see the other members' companies and cities, so feel free to reach out, or as mentioned, we're happy to make introductions. Six, we also generate executive summaries of meetings, including the key takeaways and learning nuggets, so that you can reference them and put them right into action. Seventh, our members are very busy, so we started a service where we pick out the top 6 most interesting articles among thousands at hundreds of sites to keep you abreast and ensure you don't miss the key ones. Lastly is our Book of the Month summary that you can either read or listen to as you commute. Each month we select the most interesting books, then summarize the ideas so within minutes you can absorb the key takeaways. There are many other benefits, of course, but I just wanted to highlight some and ask you to keep a lookout in your inbox for a number of these each month. That takes care of the housekeeping items. Give me just a moment to pull up the speaker's presentation and introduce her. Okay, all set. Now, before I turn the call over, I'd like to tell you a bit about our speaker today. As Director of Philanthropy and Social Impact, Stephanie is responsible for leading and implementing the company's global food security cause platform, Kellogg's Better Days. She also leads the planning and execution of the company-wide U.S. United Way campaign and related employee engagement activities. Stephanie serves as Executive Director for the Kellogg Company Fund and the Kellogg Employees 25-Year Fund, a private foundation established by Mr. Kellogg in 1944 with support from Kellogg Company to assist 25-year employees experiencing financial hardship. Stephanie joined Kellogg's corporate communications team in 2006 and progressed through a variety of roles with increasing responsibility until joining the philanthropy team in 2016. Her previous roles included leading the development and execution of global corporate reputation communication strategies to advance and promote Kellogg Company reputation with key stakeholders. Before joining Kellogg, she worked as a technical writer and freelance journalist. Stephanie is a Lee Honors College graduate with a bachelor's degree in journalism from Western Michigan University and received a master's degree in communication from WMU as well. She currently serves as chair on the board of the United Way of Battle Creek and Kalamazoo region and is a member of the No Kid Hungry Leadership Council. She's also co-chair on the External Advisory Board for the WMU School of Communication and serves on the WMU Alumni Association Board of Directors and Leadership Team for the Women of Kellogg Employees Resource. Stephanie, thank you so much for being with us today. Just say next when you wish the slides to advance, and the floor is all yours.
Yes, thank you so much. I'm honored and thrilled to be with you today to talk a little bit about our Kellogg's Better Days platform and particularly employee engagement in social cause initiatives. As mentioned as part of my bio, our team at Kellogg is responsible for leading corporate giving worldwide to support social cause initiatives and community engagement, and that includes how we are engaging our employees in this important work. Next, please. So I will start with our company strategy. And I'm starting with our company strategy because I think it's something that sets us apart as a company and makes us unique, and that the work that we're doing to support communities is embedded right within our company strategy, which we call Deploy for Growth. So as you see here, as you might in a typical company strategy, we have things that help propel growth for our companies. That includes building our brands, working with our customers to deliver on our plans and execution. But within that, we've also included what we call our heart and soul boosters. These are the things we are doing as a company to support our communities. And we recognize that our growth as a company cannot be achieved without doing what we can to support our communities. And that includes nourishing with our food, feeding people in need, nurturing our planet, and living our founders' values, which is really about how we are engaging people in this work. First and foremost, our employees, and that's what we will be talking about as part of the presentation today. Because as you see at the thruster of that, what we call our rocket, is people must be our competitive advantage. And one of the ways that we can contribute to that is through engagement in social cause initiatives. If we go to the next slide, I've included here some stats about how corporate responsibility and social cause initiatives help drive employee recruitment, retention, and engagement. So you'll see here some key stats that came from the Cone Communications Employee Engagement Study. They're a few years old now, but still very indicative of how employees want to engage in work that helps support their communities. So 74% say that their job is more fulfilling when they can make a positive impact on social and environmental issues. And you'll see all of these data points are higher for millennials, and we're even seeing that among Gen Z employees, that it's even greater. 70% say they would be more loyal to a company that helped them contribute to important social and environmental issues. 58% consider social environment commitments when deciding what company to work for. And 51% won't work for a company that does not have a strong social or environmental commitment plan in place. So as you can see, the work that we're doing around employee engagement in this space is very critical, not only because it's the right thing to do for our communities, but also it's because that's what employees want, and it helps drive our business. Employees that are more engaged are proving to be more productive in their jobs as well. If we go to the next slide, please. So at Kellogg, we are answering the call for how employees want to engage. I included the quote here that companies should embrace this new enlightened employee. Engaging employees effectively in corporate responsibility efforts result in a more dedicated and fulfilled workforce, one that's likely to stick around in a time when employees overall are increasingly transient. I'm sure many of us are familiar with the quote-unquote war on talent. And this is another way that we can help support the business and demonstrate our impact by creating opportunities for employees to feel engaged. And that makes them want to come to work for the company and also stay at the company longer. So how are we answering this call? If you go to the next slide, we are we're doing this through our Kellogg Better Days platform. This is a platform that we initially launched in 2013 and has evolved over time. But the purpose of this work is really to support the issue of food security and hunger. When we launched the program in 2013, we took a look at what we were supporting from a community perspective and said, you know, we're doing great things, but we could be doing more and having an even greater impact if we created a more singular focus in a particular area. And the area that we chose as a food company, not surprising, was the issue of food security and hunger relief. So we've had multiple iterations of these commitments, the latest of which we launched and announced in 2019 that take us through the year 2030. And if you're familiar with the UN Sustainable Development Goals, which are goals that the UN has set out to help improve communities, we have aligned our commitment goal with that particular goal, which is also 2030. So through our Better Days work, we are looking to drive growth through purpose by addressing the interconnected issues of well-being, food security, and climate to help end hunger and create better days for 3 billion people by the end of 2030. And as you can see here, there are 4 ways we are doing this, and they align, as you may recall, to that strategy that I shared on the first slide that is part of our company strategy. So number 1, we're nourishing people with our foods. We recognize that our foods have an important role to play in nourishing people and communities and helping to address critical things, including hidden hunger and making sure that people are getting nutrients of need to help support their overall well-being. The second pillar is feeding people in need. This is our traditional philanthropic work and most of the work that I lead around our feeding programs. We have a particular emphasis on childhood feeding programs, so making sure that kids get access to breakfast at school, making sure kids get access to summer meals when schools are out of session, and helping to support families all year round through our donations to food banks. And we have great partnerships with food banks across the globe. The third pillar of the program is nurturing people and our planet. So these are the typical things you would expect a company to do around conserving natural resources and helping to do our part to ensure that we are being good stewards of the planet. And we know that has impacts in particular on how food is grown. Climate change has impacts on farmer livelihoods, and so we're doing our part to support farmers as well by promoting climate-smart agriculture practices to help increase yields of crops and to help feed more people. And our final pillar is what we call living our founders' values. As I mentioned, this is really about how we are engaging others in the journey, because we recognize that addressing this important issue of food security and creating better days for 3 billion people is not something we can do alone. We need partners to come alongside us in this work. So this is about how we are engaging our customers, our consumers in this work, and also very critically our employees, which brings us back to our topic for today. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, we have long had a purpose platform in which we've engaged our employees. Throughout the last couple of years, as we really continue to ramp up our Better Days commitment, we have increased how we are engaging our employees so that we can help be part of that meeting the need of what our employees are expecting from us. As you saw from those stats that I shared earlier, where employees are expecting that companies are doing good for communities and they want to engage in that work. So we've long had employee volunteerism in place as a company, and we really have looked at how we have stepped up those efforts over the past few years, which is some of the information that I wanted to share with you today. And we had typically in the past had sort of key moments in time where we brought together employees around employee engagement. Typically in the U.S., for example, we have a giving campaign in the fall with our partners at United Way, and we had done a big push around volunteerism and employee engagement in our Better Days commitments around that moment in time, as well as World Food Day, which is a day celebrated in October through the UN, and really highlighting this issue of food security. And so we have typically, for the last several years, done employee engagement around that moment in time, food drives, volunteerism to support food banks and feeding programs and those kinds of things. But as we think about wanting to engage more and more people and living our founders' values in that fourth pillar that I mentioned previously, we recognized that our employees, we couldn't reach those goals if our employees were only engaging at a couple of key moments in time in the year. And we wanted to find opportunities to increase that impact, to have people be able to participate in Better Days alongside of us at any moment in time throughout the year. And then also for employees to see that benefit so that they're feeling like they're working for a company that's really giving back to their communities. So I'm pleased to share, and I will share a couple of ideas of how we've increased engagement over the past couple of years, but we're seeing great impact with our employees through these efforts. We've had more than 40,000 volunteer hours by our employees since 2017. And I will say that is just hours of our employees to support the issue of food security. One of the things I really like about our program is that we are getting very, very granular on how our employees are supporting this specific issue and how we are collectively advancing this issue. Our employees are certainly volunteering in other ways, and so we know that the impact is more than that, but more than 40,000 volunteer hours just since 2017 to support the issue of food security, which I think is amazing. And we're getting great feedback from our employees about this work. So we've heard great anecdotal information, such as our work being a big factor of why someone chose to work for the company. It's exciting and inspiring and makes you feel good about the company you're working for. Feeling fortunate that our company supports volunteering because it's good for our employees, it's good for the community, and it's fun. Having a great time supporting communities, but also as a bonding moment for the team, which I think is an interesting perspective in terms of the benefits of volunteerism, not only being about, providing that way for employees to give back to the community, but as they do it together, it creates a moment of team camaraderie. And from a quantitative standpoint, we're also trying to do a better job of tracking our impact in this space as we think about how we are helping in that particular space of making sure that we're supporting the work around people being our competitive advantage. So we did a survey last year of our employees, or we did some focus groups, where we talked to employees about what they saw as some of the strengths of our company. Employees ranked our social cause initiative as the top 5 strengths of the company, coming in at number 3. We've also been we've included more feedback loops into our work, doing surveys post-volunteerism. Employees say that this issue of food security is very important to them. 84% of employees say that. 77 are reporting that they feel and appreciate when their manager encourages them to volunteer. And our employees believe that this work is critical to enabling our future growth as a company as well, with 73% of employees saying so. So as you can see, as we think about how our work drives employee retention, recruitment, and engagement, we are seeing some great impact for this work. So now I'd like to talk about a couple of ways that we have increased those engagement opportunities. These are just a couple of examples that I share. We've had a host of them, but I recognize I only have so much time to talk, and I want to make sure to leave room for questions. So if we flip to the next slide, I'll share one way that we have worked to increase engagement in Better Days. And that's through creating a team of ambassadors, which we call our Better Days team. So this was an idea of how we could create a team of highly engaged employees across. We piloted it starting in our U.S. locations and are looking to take this to our regional locations outside of the U.S. as well. But to champion our Better Days work year-round. My team, who sits at our headquarters in Battle Creek, we sort of serve as a key resource, but we are trying to find more ways to enable our employees in each of our office and plant locations to spearhead these efforts, to find opportunities where the employees can engage at each location. So providing resources and tools to our Better Days teams in each location to coordinate employee volunteer events at various locations. We're trying to find creative ways of doing that, whether it's leveraging partnerships like we have in United Way or other charity partners to create events within the community that employees can go volunteer at. So, for example, at a couple of communities throughout the U.S., we've created large-scale food packing events where our employees can go volunteer alongside members of the community. And then we've also looked to find ways to bring volunteerism to our employees in our locations. We recognize sometimes that people can't get out of the office or out of our plant to go to the community to volunteer, so we are finding creative ways to bring the volunteering to them. So this has included things like bringing food packs on site. So food banks often need bags of food that they distribute to kids on the weekend, or little snack boxes that go out to key community partners. So we bring everything needed to pack those things right to our locations and pack them on site and have them distributed to the community. So working with the team to identify those opportunities. And the great thing about having those teams is they know their employees in each location best. Every location is going to be a little bit different in terms of how the culture is and how employees engage, and so they're able to give us good feedback, because something that might work at one office or plant location might not work at another, and it allows us to share best practices across all of our teams. Through this team, we can also better share our messaging locally. As we think about how we typically communicate about our work, as you probably do, have your typical employee and communications channels, whether it's an intranet or newsletters or monitor slides, that screens that are up in locations, internal social network channels. At Kellogg, we use a channel called Yammer. So, we're doing everything we can to share about our Better Days work through those typical channels. But we know that people are often looking for their local leaders in their location or their friends to talk about things that are happening, and they hear those messages from their leaders and from their peers. So through our Better Days team, we're able to better equip people in each location to be ambassadors for sharing the messages, so that they're hearing those messages, and then they can point them to the corporate channels like our intranet and newsletters and other items where they can get more information, and spearheading and championing those. Another way we're leveraging our Better Days team is to track employee volunteer participation for us. In the U.S., we've actually just implemented a new system. It's a technology solution to help better track volunteerism in the last year, called Salesforce Philanthropy Cloud, in partnership with our friends at United Way. Prior to that, we had a very manual process for tracking employee volunteerism using Excel spreadsheets, which is not the most efficient way to do so. But now with this new technology tool, we have a better way of tracking, and so we can have our Better Days teams encouraging people to make sure that they're tracking their volunteer time in our new technology platform. The teams have also allowed to create a feedback loop. As I mentioned, we have been doing some surveying, which is where we got some of our stats on the previous page to get information. But we are also using these teams to solicit feedback to improve programming. As I said, what might work in one site, what works in one site might not work in another. So we're getting that great feedback from our teams to do a better job in the program that we're creating, and also to give our employees an opportunity to feel like they're co-creating that programming with us, so they feel even more engaged and a part of the Saturday's work with us. And then we keep the team coordinated through quarterly Better Days calls where we're sharing information and best practices. And we also created, if folks are using programs like Microsoft Teams where you can share files, we've created a Teams site where we can regularly post and share messaging and content that the Better Days teams can leverage in each of those locations. So the idea behind creating this team was to really help generate this year-round enthusiasm and support for our Better Days work. Because, as I mentioned, just having a couple of key moments in time wasn't really going to get us to the level of engagement that we were looking for. So we were hoping that these teams would help spearhead that for us, and we're seeing great success in that already since we launched these teams in 2019. And then I also included on here, many employers probably have employee resource groups. We have several employee resource groups at Kellogg, our Women of Kellogg resource group. We have a veterans group, a variety of groups, and they're all doing great things to support communities as well. And so this was also an opportunity to create a better link between the work that we were doing at a corporate level from a Better Days perspective to the individual activities with our business resource groups. So for an example here, our Women of Kellogg group often do days of volunteering, and we've been able to link them to spearheading days of caring activities around fighting hunger. And when we have some of those large food-scale packing events, like I mentioned, they're helping to spearhead and create excitement and get volunteers to help support some of those activities. So we're really proud of our Better Days teams. We found, this sort of grassroots engagement has been really successful in helping to get folks more engaged in the work at a local level and not feel like it's just something that is happening at a corporate level that people don't really understand how it's coming to life. Through our Better Days teams and local engagement with local charity partners, they're able to see how our Better Days work is coming to life in our local community. So if we flip to the next slide, I'll share another example of how we've been engaging our employees in new and creative ways. So this is a program we also launched last year called Volunteer With Me. This is an extension of our current volunteering platform. As I said, we've been doing volunteering for a long, long time. But this is a new way to engage our leaders in this volunteer effort. So the program, how it works, is working with our executives to identify a couple of dates on their calendars. As I said, we launched this in 2019. And then through the technology portal that I mentioned, we post those dates, and 10 to 15 employees can sign up to volunteer with the leader, whether it's at a food bank, a soup kitchen, a community garden, or other. And it's as simple as that. All that's missing is you, the volunteer, to sign up to go out into the community and volunteer with our executives. So this has included our CEO, our president of our Kellogg North America division, our head of human resources, and it gives opportunities to engage with those key executives in a meaningful way, getting exposure to an executive they might not otherwise get exposure to, all while supporting our community. This quote here from Forbes, I think, summarizes it. If you want to generate real social impact and deepen your corporate culture, it all starts with leadership showing up. And this is a way that we can demonstrate that our leadership is showing up to engage with our employees and support our communities. As I mentioned, we believe this has a strong opportunity to boost morale. So 70% of employees reported through a Deloitte survey that volunteer opportunities boost morale more than company mixers. So we've had tremendous feedback on this particular program. We did our first round last year. We are hoping to do our another round this year, but certainly as we are all working in a new environment with response to the coronavirus situation, I will acknowledge that this, of course, has had impacts on how we are managing volunteerism this year, because we don't know when we will be able to get out and volunteer together, and it will be safe to do so in the midst of social distancing. So I just want to acknowledge that these are obviously programs and things that we have put in place over the past couple of years that have had great success for engagement, and we're looking forward to getting back out there and being able to do that again. But I also just wanted to share that in the meantime, we know that employees are still looking for ways that they can engage in better days, even though many of us are not able to get out and we're working from home. So we are also looking at increased opportunities for virtual engagement and virtual volunteer opportunities that our employees can engage in. So, for example, we are looking at launching a virtual campaign internally where employees can thank our food bank workers who are on the front lines right now helping to provide food relief to our communities. And so we have employees writing notes of encouragement to our food bank workers and thanking them for their support during this time that we're going to share with our employees. And another thing that we are looking at in the sort of virtual volunteer space is skills-based volunteering. What this means is employees, we do a lot around, as you see on the slide, going to food banks and soup kitchens and community gardens. But we also know our employees have a lot of skills and talents that they can provide, whether they work in finance or marketing or sales. And our nonprofit partners need those skills as well. So we're actually looking at hopefully piloting a program this year where, we can partner up with certain nonprofit organizations. They can share a project with us. Say, for example, one of our food bank partners needs help with a marketing and communications plan. How can we connect that food bank and the needs that they have to someone in our marketing or communications team that can help provide that support to them? And many of those types of activities can be done virtually. So these are some things that we are continuing to explore, not only because of the current situation that we have, but we also have a lot of employees that work virtually all the time. People in our sales field and in other capacities who aren't going to an office every day but are working from home. So this gives us an opportunity to continue to engage those employees in the work that we're doing year-round as well. So I think that brings me to the end of my slides. In summary, I would just say, we are very proud of the work that we're doing around Better Days to support our communities. Our employees are highly engaged in this work. I'm pleased to share with you some of the creative ways that we have worked to increase that employee engagement over the past couple of years, and getting our employees excited about Better Days and really championing this work, because we know that those employees who are highly engaged in this kind of work are also highly engaged overall in the company. As I mentioned, there are studies that show that employees who are engaged in this kind of work are happier, are more productive. And as you saw from some of those earlier slides, we are getting that kind of feedback from our employees that they're proud to work for a company that let them support these activities, and for some, it's part of the reason why they came to work for the company. So thank you for the opportunity to share a little bit about our work in this space, and I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you, Stephanie. We really enjoyed your presentation. Before I present the questions that have been submitted, do we have any live questions? Again, it's *6 to unmute your line and go ahead with your questions, or you can click anywhere on this last slide and type your question as a comment. So again, any live questions? Okay, Stephanie, we've received several questions throughout your presentation. Keep in mind you may have touched on these topics, but I'm going to ask you all the questions anyway, just in case there's something you'd like to add to or elaborate on. The first question, the first question that came in is, for those of us who would like to do something like this, can you explain where you began, what the first steps were?
Sure, absolutely. So some of our earlier steps were doing a lot of benchmarking and best practice sharing with some other companies and key partners. We're very fortunate through some of our key charity partnerships, particularly our partnership with United Way, that we have access to those corporate partners to learn about what they're doing and what's been successful for them, and being able to learn from those best practices and implement some of those ourselves. For example, the Better Days team was an idea that we had seen successfully implemented at some other corporate partners, creating those ambassador teams to really help drive that grassroots engagement at a local level in what we're doing from a corporate perspective. So I would say definitely, if you're interested in starting something like this, benchmarking what other companies are doing, and I'm certainly open to people if they want to reach out. I'm happy to talk further about our program and how we got it off the ground. Feel free to reach out. I'm happy to be one of those folks that you benchmark with.
Thank you, Stephanie. The next question. Do you give people time away from their jobs to participate in these efforts? How does that work?
Yes. We have implemented volunteer policies across the globe. They have to be somewhat different, as you might imagine, region, different sort of requirements in various regions. But generally speaking, overall, we give folks up to 2 working days, so 16 hours a year, to participate in volunteer activities. And that's included within our volunteer policies in the region.
Okay, thank you for that. The next question that came in. Is this the first initiative like this that you've launched, and how has engagement compared to past ones, if there were some?
Yeah, so I would say we are on a journey. We have always had engagement and volunteerism for many years. But as I said, it typically was around a key moment in time. In particular, it started as around our historic United Way campaign, which was in the fall. We'd ask people to, give to the campaign, and then also to participate in the volunteer activity. And then we sort of expanded it a bit when we launched our Better Days commitments initially in 2013. We wanted to have another moment in time where we were engaging people specifically in the issue of food security. And so that's where our World Food Day, that's our, if you hear a lot of companies talking about their sort of day of service or time of service, that's really that for us, is World Food Day, where we're engaging our employees across the globe in this issue of food security by hosting food drives and getting out and volunteering at food-related activities. And then from there, as we continue to evolve our platform and said, it's great that we have these couple of moments in time, but, if you look at the research that says employees want to be engaged in these things and they want to do so regularly, we knew we had to continue to evolve to create more ongoing and always on opportunities. And so that's where we have been in the past couple of years of really increasing those opportunities. We still have those key moments in time, but then we found other ways to engage. So for example, in the U.S., April is Volunteer Recognition Month. So we have historically done a big push around volunteerism around that time. December 5th is International Volunteer Day. That's another time where we've leveraged a moment in time to encourage people to volunteer and to get engaged. And then from a tracking perspective, we are evolving that too. So historically it has been how many hours people had participated in those Day of Caring events around our United Way campaign. And then it became tracking that and how many people participated in the World Food Day activities. And now it's evolved to how we're tracking how many people are participating in the Always On activities. But to me, that's not enough. And so where I had the slide that had some data points about feedback of engagement and how people are feeling about our platforms, we're continuing to find new ways to get better data points. So it's not just about the hours that we are volunteering, but what is the impact of the hours that we're volunteering? So that's where we've instituted surveys. Now, every time someone volunteers, they get a post-volunteer survey so that they can give us feedback on their experience, but then also answer some of these questions so we can get some data on how they felt about those experiences and what that means for them working for Kellogg. We are looking at doing some more regular focus groups. As I mentioned, we've gotten some great focus group surveys. So we're looking at how we could potentially keep those going year over year to get more feedback on our programming and what this means to our employees. We've also worked with our HR team to create a survey that will be going out to all new hires, so we can continue to get more quantitative data on why employees chose to work for Kellogg, and our CSR initiatives are listed among that, so we can see, what employees say about this being a reason why they chose to work for Kellogg Company. So I would say we're really ramping up our efforts to get better about how we are tracking the work that we're doing, so we can show the meaningful impact for the work beyond just the number of hours that we're volunteering.
Okay, good. The next question that came in was, how do the reactions and participation levels you see from your older workers compared to those of the younger ones?
Yeah, it's interesting. We don't have any quantitative data to necessarily to show the difference between the ages. But I'd say, anecdotally, what I've seen, we do have great participation across all ages and generations of our employees. Certainly, we see very active groups with the younger demographic, however. So, for example, our Young Professionals Resource Group is very active in this employee engagement space. So, I definitely anecdotally hear and see from them quite often, how important this is to them and how meaningful it is to them. I'm hoping as we get into some better, this new technology platform that we launched, Salesforce Philanthropy Cloud, will allow us to get better data tracking about not just the number of hours, but who's actually engaging. So I'm hoping that we can get better metrics. So I would say, while we do see strong participation across all groups, we definitely hear vocally from some of our younger employees And I'm thinking of particular one of our Better Day leads, who is a young professional at one of our offices in Michigan. Very active, very vocal, and looking to get employees engaged. So we do hear from that younger group quite often.
Okay, thank you for that. The next question that came in is, has Kellogg's ever studied the behaviors of highly engaged employees?
I think that we have done some surveying. We, like many companies, undertake a global opinion survey each year. But that's where I'm hoping through some of the focus groups and other things that we want to start doing more regularly is how we can stay better in touch with those highly engaged groups, get their feedback, get their input to help make our programs stronger.
Okay, thank you. The next question is, how did you work with HR on this?
Yes. So, the employee engagement piece in social cause has historically sat with our philanthropy function within corporate affairs. But as we're starting to, and I've been making the case for how this work really does benefit the recruitment, retention, engagement, we have worked harder to strengthen our relationship with HR and have them see this work as a complement to the overall package of things that they're providing for employee engagement. So, for example, I mentioned the skills-based volunteering example of a pilot that we're looking to do. We've been working, our team has put together the thoughts and the proposal around that, but we're working hand in hand with the HR team to leverage that because, we want to build that into people's development plans for the year. So as they, as an individual, are working with their manager on ways that they can develop certain skills and talents, they could potentially leverage these volunteer opportunities to do that, and they can build that within their development plan for the year. So we're working hand in hand with HR to do that. And as our HR team has also launched a new program that really looks at sort of various spokes of employee well-being, physical, emotional, and social. We've been working very closely, particularly in the social realm, because we recognize that these volunteer activities and these engagement opportunities fall squarely within that. So for this year, for our World Food Day campaign, for example, we're going to be working with HR how they can supplement and encourage people to participate in those activities as part of that HR program as well. So I'm pleased to see an increased partnership between what we're doing and our HR team.
Okay, thank you for that. And the last question that came in, how long will you champion this before you bring in another large initiative to reignite engagement?
Yeah, it's so our long-term commitment around Better Days and engagement in food security, as you saw, we have a goal through 2030 that we're committed to. And our employees are very committed to it as well. But with every program, whether you're doing anything that's employee engagement, PR programming, communications programming, anything, sometimes things need a new spin on them, right, to make it fresh and new and engaging. So that's where I think these feedback loops are really important, so that we can start to better assess when people are thinking that it's time to try something a little bit different, and we can better get their ideas on what we can try and do a little bit different. So, like this volunteer with me example, we have really great and positive feedback to it. In a couple of years from now, maybe we do or we don't continue to have that same level of enthusiasm and engagement. And hopefully those feedback loops that we have put into place will help us be able to better tell that, and get information and ideas from employees about how we can reinvigorate it. So I think it's important to take a look at any program that you're doing to say, you know what, does it need some refreshing, and what would that take? So that's something we'll continue to do and get feedback from our employees to help improve our programming and make it better.
Great, Stephanie. We've covered everyone's questions. Do you have any final thoughts or words of wisdom you'd like to share before we end the summit today?
No, just thank you so much for the time. I'm pleased to be able to share what we're doing. As I said, it's important for our communities. It's important for our employees. It really does help drive that employee recruitment, retention, and engagement. And if you want to reach out to have any further discussion about how you might like to learn some best practices and potentially implement ideas, please don't hesitate to reach out. And I'd love to hear from any of you on some ideas that you might have. It's a continued process of learning from one another to improve our program. So I'll just put that out there, as I'm happy to continue the dialogue.
Great, Stephanie. And on behalf of all the executives on the line, I'd like to thank you for sharing such powerful ideas and key thoughts with us today. Your involvement and dedication to our profession sets a high benchmark for others to follow. For all of the participants on today's call, thank you for your continued membership and insightful questions for today's speaker. The meeting is now officially concluded. Stephanie, thank you so much again, and everyone have a great day.